Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today on Training Friday, as he does every other Friday, Tom Walls of the Firearms Academy, Seattle. Tom, thanks for coming on the ride today, man.
My pleasure. Sorry we missed last time, but you know why. I was out giving training.
Yeah, you were doing a Mag 80 last 2 weeks ago, right?
Mag 40 and Mag 80, one after the other up here at FAS.
Very
So
cool.
the instructors volunteer time is line coaches and safety officers, and we get to learn more about how to teach and sit in on the lectures, and I think I get the better part of that deal.
I've been able to do that for a
Yep.
couple Mag 40s, and I absolutely love doing it whenever I have the chance. Um, let's get into the topic of the day, and before I do that, I got to get social media hooked up here. I want to remind everybody, if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, you can comment on either of those live videos. Get your comments in, and we will put your comments up on the air and discuss them. If you're watching anywhere else, tweet with the hashtag Bullet Podcast. Those actually get in quicker, and I will get your comments up, and we'll discuss them. Today's topic kind of bleeds over from what I did last weekend. What I wanted to talk with you about, Tom, is what the challenge of taking a very first time shooter, somebody who's never held a handgun before or a firearm before in their life, teaching them to shoot for the first time. One of the things we often say, and it's not said a lot anymore, but I said it early in my podcasting career, and I still hear it every once in a while, is if you want more good gun laws, take people shooting. The more shooters we have, the more shooting voters we will have. So we need to expand the number of shooters. The easiest way to do that is take people shooting. If people get involved, a lot of the time they will fall in love with it, and a lot of whether they love it will depend on their first shooting experience. So that's a lot of weight, and not something you should just, hey Martha, let's take the neighbor to the range. It'll be cool. There needs to be a little bit of thought that goes into that, right?
And certainly not those, how can I say this nicely, horrid YouTube videos. Hey, let's take the girl shooting and give her the big gun and watch the recoil. This would be cool, guys. You want to take those folks out behind the barn and slap them around a while and make them bleed.
Yeah, or the barely dressed girl that and all of a sudden they're catching hot brass and doing the hot brass dance.
That's not. No, no, no. Don't do it. No. I'm adamant and passionate about that. When you sent me the topic for the week, I sat down with my wife, who is also an instructor at FAS, and we chat over morning coffee. Retired people have the luxury of doing that. And she immediately said kindness and patience are what she pushes for, because she and I do a lot of the beginning class, because face it, I'm old enough now to be the grandfather of most of the people that show up. So she and I together are very non-threatening. And
your wife, yeah.
Well, it's her ego, but generally we present the nice part. In a shoot house, however, we could burn up all your time on stories of Diane in the shoot house, but we won't. The reasons that these folks come, well, like your experience here just last week, first-time shooters, it's really, for some people, it's quite a decision. They've been anti-gunners their whole life, or all they know about us, you and I, and most of the folks that watch your podcast, is given to them by the media and the news, and we are rarely shown kindly. If we just show them the truth and treat them with respect, rather than showing up in wife beaters and chewing tobacco and talking about the government, leave the politics out of it. Show them the truth, and the fence sitters, not all of them, but most of them, will come to understand what the reality is and maybe become gun owners themselves.
Well, if nothing else, you'll be introducing them to something that what I like to do is I like to say, because I've done more than just this past weekend with new shooters. I pride myself in around here. If there's somebody that hasn't been shooting, I'll take them to take their first shots. And then as they progress, I'll pass them on to other trainers. But one of the things I love to do is when we go to the range, I leave all the politics behind, and I stress we're going to be safe when we go to the range. We're going to have fun when we go to the range. And the fun takes care of itself. Safe is, as long as you keep it safe, the fun takes care of itself.
It does. I mean, when Diane learned how to shoot, when I learned how to shoot, it was with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I was like 5, 6 years old, and we'd go shoot balloons with a little birdshot out of a 22, and it was fun, but it was safe. I got my fanny paddled a couple times for doing something that was against his rules, but I learned. Not everybody that ends up having a gun, owning a gun, or even to the point of carrying, had the advantage of growing up with parents that could take them shooting. A lot of folks, as you saw, come new into the sport or into the practice as adults, and they may have a lot of baggage. We have to treat them with respect, whatever brought them to us. Curiosity, fun. Um, we see a lot of the self-defense stuff, so it could be, my neighbor was raped.
Mm-hmm.
We have one regular student who is Native American, and he sends a lot of his family and close friends to us for entry level classes, and he pays for it. He very quietly funds his family. And I heard a quote from him secondhand, but I believe it to be accurate. He says, the girls on the res that know how to shoot, they don't get raped and they don't get trafficked. And if that's not part of the world you're familiar with, that's great, but it is part of a lot of people's world. And they'll come to us with that. People of different sexual orientations, skin colors, cultural backgrounds, education, although we seem to get a lot of IT guys, and I haven't quite figured that one out. But they come to us, they've made this profound decision in some cases to at least learn how to use something that's deadly force. And you have to respect that. You cannot be condescending. You can't make fun of them because they don't know the jargon. You and I
Mm-hmm.
talked about jargon. I'm going to regulate my sights to a POI, POA to consider the offset. Their eyes will glaze over. Take them like a kind uncle. And in fact, one of my nieces is a rather accomplished shooter. She finished taking Mag 80 because we started out just that way. She had an incident in her life that made her make that decision. That's how we have to treat our students, Paul. We absolutely have to give them the respect and be patient and be kind to them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be more relaxed. They'll be much more receptive if they know they're safe, that the male instructor is not going to grab female butt, or you're not going to
Yes.
get a political lecture, or you're not going to get a bunch of war stories. That if you're going to shoot a demonstration and model behavior, you're going to do it correctly.
Let me let's turn a little bit. There are some things I'm going to recommend that if you're going to be taking somebody out to the range. Now I'm going to leave last weekend out of this because last weekend was a special circumstance.
It
Um,
sounds like it was a really neat one. I do want to hear about it sometime.
yeah, and we'll talk after we're done here, and maybe I'll add a little bit as we're talking here. But last weekend was a really special circumstance, and a lot of the things I do when I take someone new shooting didn't happen or happened in a very different way last weekend. When I take somebody new shooting, there's several things I like to do. I like to have them dress for the range. I like to let
Yes.
them know before we go, look, these ladies, if you want to dress attractively, that's kind of up to you, but this low cut stuff, that's a brass attractor.
Yeah,
Um,
it's almost like a funnel. Yeah. And you have to be honest with them and say, ladies, we had one do the brass dance 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
yeah, I will even to the point if I know I'm bringing somebody new, a new female to the range, I will actually in my range bag pack a few T-shirts of different sizes, my
Good.
size, and I'll grab one of Susan's if and just to make sure that if they come to the range and they've got a brass attractor, I give them the option of putting this on because nobody likes digging brass out. Not only that, if you get, and I had one that did catch hot brass last weekend, and I had to go gadget arm to get my arm around and in front of her and get a hold of that firearm as she was grabbing for brass. Um, that is the one thing that will that is the most dangerous with a new shooter, is that they're trying to get that brass out of there with a hand. Their dominant hand has a gun in it.
They're not, yeah, they're not used to thinking about the gun in the hand. It's you can, yeah, I'm old fashioned. I think of John Wayne as having really good manners. If you treat the ladies nicely and just, hey, ma'am, the girls are going to attract brass, I'd put this T-shirt on. It's also a safety issue, like you said, and if you tell them it's a safety issue, they'll do it for other people, and guys
Mm-hmm.
will too, for other people more than they would do it for themselves. But that's part of that making them feel safe and comfortable, so they can take this on and actually take the instruction that they've made the decision that they want to take.
Now, I'll say this: I don't see many guys with the 1970s with the shirt only half buttoned and their chest hair exposed. That's not really the style anymore. Thank goodness. But that's
Well, I did have a guy last week with a mullet, so I guess that's, yeah, like I could pull that off.
also there's things I take to the range when I'm taking somebody to shoot for the first time. I will take a blue gun, and I'll try to make sure I have a blue gun that matches what I'm going to be having them shoot.
Red gun, yes. Well, it also shows some professionalism. You've got this specialized equipment to do what you do. What else do you take? Just out of curiosity, because I'm going to steal anything good.
Well, I'm sure you are a far more accomplished trainer than I am, and
You're
you've done a lot more shooting with new shooters than I have. I, of course, bring an emergency kit. I bring extra pairs of eyes and ears, eye protection, ear protection, and I bring extra hats. Um, I will, if it's spring or fall, or God forbid if we're going to an outdoor range in the winter, I will bring gloves. But I've yet to use those. I've yet to have those used. So
One
those.
thing we do along that line, the range that we have, a number of ranges where I work. The range that we have dedicated to the beginners has a wood stove, so we always have that going in the wintertime. I don't have gloves for the students, but I carry the little chemical hand warmers,
Mhm.
and people will fall in love with you if they even look cold. Just hand them one already lit up and ready to go. Here you go. Put this in your hand.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll carry side shields for folks that have prescription glasses. I always carry a little bottle of oil because at least a third or more of the guns that show up in a beginning class that people bring are bone dry or they've never been lubed at all.
Mhm.
That fixes a number of malfunctions. If I don't have one malfunction per class because a gun just needs a little TLC and a little bit of oil. Um, I happen to have one here. This is Diane's desk. I've got a little card. I copy this off the net, both sides laminated.
Mhm.
That shows up a proper sight picture. It's a lot easier than trying to describe it. With the finger thing that we do.
Yes. And make sure
Rubber
you
band.
use the correct finger for the front sight, not the
Yeah,
wrong
yeah,
finger.
yeah.
Anyway.
And that's another thing. You've got to have a good demeanor. You can't be f-bombing all the time. That's I was telling you. Well, you know me. You've known me for years. That's one of my favorite words. I don't use it on the range. It puts some people off.
Mhm.
You've got to fill a role. Just like when I show up here, I've got my work shirt on. I try to carry myself the way that instructors that I have respected over the years. I think of my first instructor when we went to FAS, a gentleman named Nick Bolton, who has since retired, an expat Brit, served in combat in the Falklands and in the Troubles in Ireland. At the time, he was living in Vancouver, BC, and working as a police officer. And he was, wow, he was so professional. He knew my name when I walked in the door. Just the way he carried himself. So I always try to channel Nick a little bit.
I and we're getting comments come in. I want to again remind everybody, if you want to comment with what you do when you take a new shooter out, that's very cool. We could learn
Well,
something from you. Absolutely. Let's get Michael over on the YouTube side is saying good evening, checking in from Columbus, Ohio. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for all you do.
Hey, Michael. Hey, thanks, man. It's something we're passionate about. I know
Hmm.
Paul is talking beforehand. When I talk to people about my day job that I've retired from, I'd kind of talk about it. We're doing this. You ask me about teaching someone? Oh my God. I'll talk your ear off. They'll hustle me out the door.
Well, we got 15 minutes. We don't have to hustle out the door yet.
Saw my doctor yesterday. He says, "Oh, whoa, you were working part time. What do you do?" So I told him, and I get the impression he's not a pro gun person, but he was very professional. But I started going, and I got eased out the door. He was very kind about it, and
Now,
patient and respectful.
I want to branch off a little bit, and I want to talk about the students. Specifically, I want to talk about two types of students. The first one I want to talk about is the scared student, the student who, yeah, has a fear of firearms. They've cranked down on it enough. They've shown up to you for training, but you can tell they've got the sweaty palms. They're very looking around a lot. They're
Mhm.
they're 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 almost terrified. How do you approach that student?
I would say sometimes more than almost terrified. It is not at all uncommon for those folks to have had some type of event happen. Um, we've had people that have been, especially women, have been physically assaulted, sexually assaulted, attacked by dogs, terrified something has happened in their life, and they have made a decision to do something that literally terrifies them. And they literally will cry, they'll burst into tears after they fire their first shot. We look for them. When we bring new apprentice staff on, one of the first things I tell them is stand back because we always demonstrate our drills so the students have a picture of modeling of proper behavior and technique. And we don't watch the instructor demonstrating, we watch the students to see who flinches or jumps at the first live shot. We keep an eye on them, and if they flinch at the second one, we know they need some extra care and we try to spend some extra time with them and let them relax. We'll
Mm-hmm.
offer them extra hearing protection, but it's an emotional thing to make that change when it's when we are presented as we are presented in the media. And we need to fight that stereotype and just tell them the truth.
And I think so that's where Diane's suggestion of patience and kindness comes in.
Absolutely. She'll have people say, thanks for being patient. It's something totally new. I mean, I grew up with cap guns and real guns and I knew to take your finger off the trigger, all this stuff, and they're getting overwhelmed with this as adults. If we tell them, no, you're doing it wrong, if you tell a student they're doing it wrong, they're going to start to shut down because they came for encouragement. You can present it all kinds of ways depending on your teaching style. You know, that's not unsafe, but there's a better way. Can I show you? And of course, they'll jump at it because they did pay the money and take the time. You don't disrespect a student's choice of firearm.
Mm-hmm.
It is not at all, again, it is not at all uncommon. We get it frequently. I have this gun. I don't know anything about it, but it belonged to my dad, and my dad passed away. That's,
Dad might
I
have had huge hands, and they don't.
and they don't, and or they'll get this POS gun, but it's all they can afford. We never make fun of a High Point or a Jennings. You know, this is, I say, this is the boy you brought to the dance, or this is the girl you brought to the dance. You need to learn how to use this gun. Maybe that's all you're going to have. Maybe that's the only gun you'll ever want to buy. Sentimental value, whatever it might be, work with them. They'll figure out that maybe everybody else on the line is having an easier time manipulating their gun. Say, look, we'll do the best we can. So and so here, she's got the most difficult. I keep using she. I probably shouldn't, but that's the new women shooters have the most trepidation, although a lot of men do too. But it's disproportionately women. She's got the most difficult gun to fire on this entire line, and she's rocking it. Oh my God. I'm getting praise for something that I'm actually doing. You're not blowing sunshine in their ear. You never blow sunshine in their ear. You'll give them encouragement. And then when you give them encouragement, they'll sometimes take the criticism a little better. It's like a little kid. You give them negative feedback all the time, they will shut you down. Or they'll simply walk away. They'll leave in the middle of class. We
Yeah.
have failed them if we do that. We have utterly failed.
I want to dovetail off on that, and I keep going back to this past weekend because it's so fresh in my mind.
Go for it, man. This is the stuff that we all live for.
I had one young lady who had a really hard time getting a sight picture, and her groups were rather large.
Mhm.
She got it, and I said, there you go. That's it. That's exactly it. Do that exactly that thing right the next time. And we were in very slow fire. We were, maybe one shot every 30 seconds. She goes, "Oh, that was it." And they had 20 rounds. That was about round 10. The next 10 rounds were one ragged hole.
The
It's
epiphany.
Yeah, the light bulb turned on. Let me get a comment in here real quick. Gun websites over on the YouTube side. In my opinion, a good firearm instructors start classes with a welcome, then right into a safety chat. Ask which students have medical training, show where their aid kits are, and give directions to the nearest facility. Um, yeah, and I will. A lot of that, what I do, we're talking formal classes. What I will do in that case, that all happens if possible on the way to the range or before we get to the range. Yeah, when we're at the range, the very first thing is medical kit is here, and once the live fire is about to start, okay, we're about to be going. We're going to shoot real ammo here. If something bad happens, you are going to be dialing 911. You are going to stand over there to greet the ambulance and get and wave your arms and bring them in over here. And and if you decide who's got the most medical experience, you are in charge until the paramedics get here. That sort of thing happens in a official classroom environment.
Yep. We
So
do it. I know major schools do. I know one school that on the name tag that they issue you at the first day of class, there'll be a little code mark on there if you have medical training or experience. And then the staff knows who they can ask for assistance. I don't like to get into great detail with the beginning class because some of them are scared enough already. I
mhm.
will truncate what I say and say, we have a safety plan in effect. We don't
Hmm.
anticipate problems. We know you all will want to go to standard, but we have something going on. And then all the staff knows how to do this. We've got our scripting, who's primary and secondary on each thing. That's an excellent suggestion from Gunwriter.
Um,
If y'all not doing that already, do it. There's always a bunch of trauma kits on the range, but if you don't have a plan, they're useless.
uh, Another one. You might know this commenter. Marty Hayes says we always have a 22 that works to let the student continue with class if their gun takes a crap.
The Glock Model 44 is a wonderful gun. Yeah, it's amazing. Hi, Marty. I'll get worms for fishing. It's or if they have the little gun that doesn't work, the little Jennings or the little Bryco will say, "Oh, that's
or the
too
sky.
bad mine doesn't fit you. Here, borrow one of ours." And
I
that saved a
had
few.
This was not an official class. It was a friend that I was wanted me to help them with their gun, and they brought a Sky 9 millimeter. I don't know the exact model number, but
Familiar with them.
it was a it would supposedly it was a semi-auto, but you'd fire it once and then the safety would re-engage. You had to, if you wanted to fire it semi-auto, you actually had to ride your thumb on the safety
Oh my goodness.
for it to not re-engage and you'd be able to fire a second shot. And once we figured that out, I was able to let him know that look, if you actually have to draw and fire this thing, this is what you're going to have to do. The gun lasted in his possession about another 3 weeks before he replaced it.
Well, I think you handled that really well. Rather than say, no, that's crap, only a fool would get a gun like that, you shut them off. They'll probably hang on to it out of spite because it made sense when they bought it. They're emotionally invested in
Mm-hmm.
that whole process. The deciding, the going, the shopping, the purchasing, the bringing it home, the first shots out of it. They'll figure it out.
I want to talk about one more type of student with you real quick, and that's the exact opposite of the one that's terrified, and
No, not.
that that's the overconfident one. That's the
Mm.
My uncle George taught me everything I need to know about shooting. He was a deputy sheriff or he was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. And he knows everything. He taught me everything. And they're going into this, then they know everything.
We talked about a month ago about the Zen empty cup. If you know everything, why are you there? If you say, I've never heard that before, that's kind of our job as instructors to show you something you haven't yet learned or to improve what you already know. But there's only so much you can do for that student. You have to let them know that there is stuff out there. It's a little bit of a sales job and a little bit of PR. But again, you need to be kind. The student doesn't understand that they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. It's our job to show them. That's one reason that we always demonstrate our drills before we have the students do them. So we're modeling the behavior, we're modeling the technique. Even if I'm not showing how to do a perfect draw stroke, if I take my gun out of the holster, I'm damn well better be doing a perfect draw stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Once they understand that there's something out there that maybe they don't have and they want, they'll talk less and listen more. Unfortunately, there are those few that are so convinced they know everything for whatever reason. You just go up to them, and if they're safe, hey, having a good time? That's great. Keep doing that. And you spend your time with students that really deserve the time and want the time and can benefit from the time. Those students that are that difficult are sad. I wish my skills were better at bringing them into learning, but sometimes it doesn't happen.
So the last thing I like to do when I'm for a first time shooter, and honestly, first time shooters don't often have the my uncle George told me everything I need to know.
Yeah.
That it's actually fairly rare, but I do get some overconfident ones, especially I'll say this of the young male children of people who are not are have firearms. Maybe not a lot of them. Maybe their mom and dad are around the firearms community,
Mhm.
but they're bringing and then they want me to introduce young Joe. They want me to help him take his first shots. I've done that a couple, three times. Young
Good.
Joe has seen dad shoot and thinks he's going to do just what dad does and is very confident. And I'd like young Joe to slow down. And occasionally, it's a struggle to find the right words to say. Hey, let's slow it down. Let's take it a
Mhm.
little easy. Let's not run before we walk here.
It's especially difficult when it's somebody that they respect. My dad taught me how to do this. If I do something different, I'm disrespecting my father, even if they don't quite understand that's what's happening. We'll see that, and that's the people skills an instructor should have in a back pocket somewhere. My dad, who taught me how to shoot,
Hmm.
shot like
Oh, nice teacup you got going there.
that's what he did back in the 50s when he shot with his police friends, and that's how he shot up to the last day that he and I shot together before he passed. And I'm doing my thing, and it's up to me. I always try not to correct my father, and I didn't want to throw it in his face. But yeah, there's that. You feel like if you're doing something different, you're disrespecting. So an approach to that is rather than say it's an either or, say here's another way. Why don't you try it, and then you'll know a couple of ways, rather than forcing them to make a choice. And later on, if they decide one is better than the other, then the choice is theirs. And if it's truly better, they should be doing that anyway.
Another one I seen this past weekend a lot. I saw a lot of the Cagney and Lacey. You know.
I used to do that back in the I yeah. It's always fun to watch the TV shows even currently and see the cup and saucer or the fingers, like this. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a source, folks. It's a source of entertainment for a firearms instructor. However, if you watch Tom Selleck or Tom Cruise or Keanu Reeves, you'll see some
Yes.
good gun handling. It's fantasy, it's gun fu, but technically the gun handling is pretty clean.
All right. Well, we are down at the bottom of the hour, so Before we take off, is there anything going on at the Firearms Academy of Seattle you want to promote? Anything
Oh
you
my
want to
goodness,
talk
I had
about?
actually write it down this time. There's not a lot of August left. We have John Farnham. I think there may be a spot left, but this starts like tomorrow. We have Jared Reston coming later in the month. And next month we have Steve Fisher coming for both handgun and carbine for a few days. Firearmsacademy.com, all that stuff is on the website.
Very cool. On my end, I'd like to remind you to show up at 12 p.m. Central Time tomorrow, high noon Central Time. It'll be Rob Morris, Charlie Cook, Brooke Cheney, and me. We're going to be talking about the Second Amendment events of the week. It's very much a week in review show, and we'll go over what's happened in Second Amendment news this week. For today, I want to thank you for watching, everybody, and we will catch you